In the business world, the question always seems to be, how can I be a better employee? When in fact, the question should be, how can I be a better boss? Tonight, we're going to meet the author of 2 books, You're Full of Shift and The Manager Trap. Welcome, Howard Miller.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
Glad
for
to be
being
here, David.
So, I'll take the bait. What is a 4-letter word beginning with F that managers should avoid? And I know it's cable, but be careful.
I will. I don't have to be careful. I do this in the professional world.
Yeah.
It's a grabber, right?
Yeah.
Most people will say fail, which is fine to fail. I think, David. I think the word though is fair. F-A-I-R.
You think they should avoid that word?
That's
That seems like a
correct.
word that you'd want to put right out there.
It's a trap. And here's the reason. What's fair?
Well, it's subjective.
That's exactly correct. And that's one of the biggest traps managers have, is going into subjectivity versus objectivity. Actually, we all go into that, right? But if a manager thinks my employee is not enthusiastic, they're lazy, what does that mean? How does an employee change? And if they say to their employee, you're not working hard enough, that's just, what does the employee do except get defensive? So it's a grabber to get them to start thinking about how do they think of their employees, and can they translate enthusiasm or laziness to objectivity.
Right. So now, when did you realize that you were good at this, and what talents does it take to become a business and executive coach? Why should we hire you?
Well, that's too many questions at once, David. First of all, I was a very difficult employee, as some of my past managers. I think one of the things that I look at is I believe that, they have family dysfunctionality. Well, corporate dysfunctionality is much different than that, right? I'm not knocking, there's reasons we have our structures, but there's avenues in it, and as managers, we can't change the corporate culture. So the way I look at it is, what can a manager do to make it better for themselves? That's number one. That's number one. Are they losing sleep at night over their jobs? Because they're not going to do they're not going to do themselves or anyone in their personal lives or their employees any good, which means the company won't get any good. So, look at them, what can they change? There's certain things they can't. So you can't change those, so look at the things you can. There's plenty that they can.
And what do you think is one of the most common mistakes that managers make? And let's take it from the perspective first, new managers and then someone who's been managing staff for decades, and they probably think, I got it down. Not only do I not need to change, but who cares?
One of the biggest things that happens is a lot of times when a new employee comes in, David, they'll ask the manager, what's your style? What's your management style? And the manager will tell them. You know what the manager should say? They should say, whatever style you need. The manager should be adapting to the employee, not the other way around, because...
So leading through example, or...
Leading through example, or understanding that sometimes some employees will need more. One employee might need more on one project and not on another project. So it's really a coaching model. That's it's helping them figure it out, not saying to them, why did this go wrong, but what can we do to prevent it from happening again?
So you don't think there's any one style of management?
Oh gosh, no. If we take a look, Ken Blanchard's situational leadership has 4 styles of management, and you use each of them at an appropriate time. So if they know what they're doing, if they don't know how enthusiastic they are, there is not one style of management, because one style does not fit all. So why do you hire me? It's because we'll look at the manager and look at the employee and look at it as a unique situation. Another example, a manager will come in and go, I don't like working with the people right out of college. They're all entitled. It's like, really? Really? Everyone that, and I don't know which generation is that, David. I don't know what generation is it, X, Y, Z, I don't know. But are they all entitled? And I asked them, how many people in the early 20s have you worked with? 3. So it's not they're all. Those 3 might have been. So it's breaking it down to specific situations.
I remember probably now 25 years ago, I took management training in another job, and it was really insightful to me, because I had never been trained to be a boss, and I suddenly realized probably most bosses haven't been trained to be a boss. Do you think that's true?
Yes.
And we always train our employees, but you have to ask sometime, well, why did this guy or this gal get to be the boss?
Well, they got to be the boss because they were good at what they did. And so if they're all technical people, if they're all engineers, he or she was a very good engineer, and then they get promoted. But they went to school to be an engineer. They didn't go to school to be a manager.
Yeah.
And since I do come from the IT world, that's where I'll focus, because all of a sudden they have a different job. It's very different. In one of the classes, it was a 3-day class I was teaching. On the second day, someone raised their hand and said, I decided I don't want to be a manager anymore, which I thought was really good.
Has that happened before?
Fortunately, no. If it happened all the time, we'd have a problem. But it's good because they realize they want to do what they love to do. What happens with a new manager is they were doing their job. They knew they were good at it. They knew they were great at it because they got promoted. And they would go home knowing that they did a great job. Now, how do they know?
No, because their employees will tell them because they want to curry favor, or maybe they're scared.
They may or may not, right, they may or may not tell them, but they won't tell them on a daily basis. How do they know at the end of the day they've done a good job? It's a very different job.
So what is the answer? How does a manager get the feedback he or she needs to be a better manager, which, as you say, is there to serve the employee, for the betterment of the business?
Well, here's what I always, the big picture on that, I tell a manager, what's the formal ending of a relationship between an employee and a manager? And that's the yearly appraisal, right? For right or wrong, it's the yearly appraisal. An employee should never be surprised come appraisal time. I know I had been surprised once or twice. I don't know if you have in your past. And when you are, you're like, you don't trust your manager. They should never be surprised. Well, how does that happen? You have to have regular meetings with them, one-on-one meetings, not group meetings, one-on-one with them. What do you talk about in those meetings? You talk about their goals. Those goals should be objective, not subjective like fair, but objective. If a manager is working every day, and in an ideal world, and I know it's ideal, what a manager would do all day is they'd have all their employees, they'd have them listed, all the projects they're doing, and figure out how they need to help them, how the employee wants to be helped in each one, and that's what they'd spend their day doing.
Right. I know we've probably all seen or heard that movie, The Devil Wears Prada. Do those bosses exist? I mean, someone like the Meryl Streep character that just was like, the boss from hell.
Yes, they do. They do. Great movie. In the DISC behavioral assessment, which has 4 different characteristics, Meryl was very much a definite high D, super high D. That's very task-oriented, fast-paced. Just that's all. Go. That's it.
Yeah.
They do exist. What's good?
And is that necessarily a bad boss, or is it just a type?
It's not bad or good. It's being aware of it. That was a fiction. Well, actually, wasn't she based on some?
She was based on a real person. Yeah.
But if they're aware, like I've had those type of people, for training and coaching, and when they're aware of it and they want to change, they have to understand. If they don't necessarily want to change, but they want to get a better relationship with others. So, understanding how the others are, and that they might need to have a little bit of explaining.
Right.
Or they might, the joke about the Meryl Streep character, or anyone like that, is they get to work at 8 o'clock, and by 8:03, no one's talking to them.
Right.
Because that's them, So.
In our last few moments, give some advice, 3 pointers to a manager who's looking to improve in general.
Okay, in general, what I would say to the manager is, are you delegating enough? If you're not delegating, what's the reason? And so are you looking at what are your goals that you need are the goals clear? Are they specific and measurable to each of your employees? How often do you meet with your employees on a regular basis?
And the last point?
I would say that overall, get out of your subjectivity as much as you can.
And become objective. So
That is correct.
one of the keys to being a better boss, which means being a better person to your employees, to be objective.
Exactly. Good
We've been
conclusion.
speaking to Howard Miller. We hope you'll tune in next week. I'm David Perry. Thanks for watching 10%.